My name is Jolie Pearl. Thank you for watching about what's new about standardized tests. Today is February 2nd, 2015, and I had a great opportunity to have a sit-down interview with Ray Self, Westdale teacher and standardized test expert. Miss Self taught me lots of new things about standardized tests, what is being said, and what is there to know about them. She has taught students to make good scores, do well, and just learn. She has given me the knowledge on standardized tests and what they are truly for. We had this great sit down around 4:39 p.m. at her welcoming home. Stay tuned to watch for this amazing interview on what standardized tests are, why they're important, why we have them, and how to make a good score. Miss Self, what is a standardized test to you?
Standardized tests are simply a way for whoever's looking at them, for the system that's looking at them, to determine your aptitude, how well you acquire information, how well you understand information, how well you can analyze information, and within a specific amount of time.
In your opinion, should students be admitted into colleges based off their standardized test scores?
I think that should be part of the process, not the whole process. I think, again, it is a good way to tell how, or to determine how well students not only acquire information, but how well they understand information, but and how well they can analyze it. But that's not the only good quality of a student. So I think that maybe that should be part of the process, but not the entire process.
What are standardized tests meant to do, Ms. Self?
Standardized tests are meant to determine how smart you are. Colleges and universities use the information from standardized tests to compare you and the level at which you are to other students who are basically at your same level.
Okay, so in your opinion, can a disabled child score better on an ACT test than a non-disabled child?
It just depends on what you mean by disabled. If you mean a student with an IEP or a student that has some type of special needs, I believe, yes, they can score just as well on a standardized test, if not better, than your normal quote-unquote average student, because some students who are disabled have special abilities in certain areas, and they seem to soar on standardized tests, whereas your normal average students who may not think the same, who may not have the same aptitude in certain areas, may not score as well as some students that are disabled. Now, if you're speaking in terms of a severely disabled individual, then probably not. It just depends on your definition or the specific disability of an individual child.
Miss Self, do you find that the teachings and lessons and knowledge a student has only been provided with are reflected from these standardized test scores?
I think a lot of times, I think a lot of children have access to the same information. I don't think it used to be, whereas a child may not have had access to the same education. They don't have access to the same books. They don't have access to the same teachings. But now, I think in today's time, you see more so of where you have integration of the school. So a lot of students have access to the same information and access to the same teaching. So it's not necessarily about what a child has been taught. It may have a lot to do with the acquired information, the ability to understand the information that has been taught and how it's been taught, and also the ability of the test to be able to convey to different cultures, because traditionally you see certain cultures do better on these tests than you do other cultures. However, now what you see is not necessarily because of what's being taught. It used to be thought that it was because, you know, they have access to different types of teachings. But now I don't think it's so much of an issue of the different types of teachings. It may have more to do with how the questioning is done. It may have more to do with how a child understands the test or understands the questions that are being asked on the test, if that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am, makes perfect sense. So, what are common tips that students are given to make good scores on ACT test?
The best way is to prepare. I think the worst thing that a student can do is to wait till the last minute to prepare for the test. And I think when I say prepare, to me, just going to school every day and then going in to take the test blind does not necessarily, without knowing what's on the test and without understanding how the questioning is being done. This is a time test, and so I think it's important to practice being timed when you take the test, because getting better in terms of time is something that has to be practiced. If you're going to be quicker, if you're going to make sure you're going to reach the time limits, I think that's one thing that. And so I think it's important to practice being timed when you take the test, because getting better in terms of time is something that has to be practiced. If you're going to be quicker, if you're going to make sure you're going to reach the time limits, I think that's one thing that should be practiced. But also the types of information that will be asked on the test. So if you do better in ELA, you might want to spend a little less time on reading comprehension or vocabulary, whereas if you do better in math, you might not need as much preparation in math. But to make sure that you score the necessary scores to get into these colleges, I think the key is to prepare. Mm-hmm. So,
is it possible to make wonderful grades, to understand all of your lessons in school, and make a low score on a standardized test?
Yes, it is possible to make good grades and not do well on a standardized test. A lot of times when you take a standardized test, again, it's there to measure, and some people do believe that it's a measurement of how smart you are, because the test does not just measure knowledge, but it measures what you can do with that knowledge in a specific amount of time, how fast you can think, and how fast you can look at a question and be able to analyze what it's asking for and still come out with the correct answer. So the test is there to measure basically how it's asking for and still come out with the correct answer. So the test is there to measure basically how smart you are, whereas school measures more so your work ethic. A lot of times people have to work at getting good grades. Good grades are not just from testing per se, but it's also about doing the work to get the good grades. And generally in classes, you're tested on what you learn. So it's not just overall basic knowledge. So can you do really well in school, make straight A's, and still do poorly on a standardized test? Yes, you can. I see it happening all the time.
Are standardized tests. Now, part of taking standardized tests, they teach kids to not leave anything blank with the ACT, to always fill in something. It's better to guess. So, in this case, do you believe that it is possible to guess the majority of questions correctly and cheat the test, cheat the system?
No, I don't. I think the reason why they say it's better to guess because you don't lose anything for a wrong answer. It's just some tests, some standardized tests, if you get a wrong answer, points are deducted. So I don't. I think the reason why they say it's better to guess because you don't lose anything for a wrong answer. It's just some tests, some standardized tests, if you get a wrong answer, points are deducted. So they're trying to say that it's not better to guess, that it's better to leave it blank, because if you leave it blank, then nothing will be taken from you. But if you guess a wrong answer, then you'll have points deducted. So for the ACT, they're saying to guess because a blank answer will count against you. But the more you answer, the better you can possibly. If you guess a wrong answer, then you'll have points deducted. So for the ACT, they're saying to guess because a blank answer will count against you. But the more you answer, the better you can possibly do, because there's a chance that you can guess a correct answer. So I think on the ACT, blanks and a wrong answer count as the same thing. So if you get, they both count as 0. So if you fill it in and by chance you get it right, then it can only improve your score if you guess it right, as opposed to not really affecting your score if you guess it wrong.
Okay, Miss Self, please tell me, are standardized tests important? Are they needed? In your opinion, are they necessary for children to have required for college admission?
I think it is a good way to assess a student's ability to think quickly, to analyze and assess what needs to be done and what it would take to get it done. I don't always think it assesses necessarily how smart a student is. I've had students who I didn't think were very, very smart do extremely well on the ACT and say that they didn't know how they did walking out. And then I've had who are very, very smart take the ACT and perform poorly on it. But again, it could be assessing, again, how smart you are versus your work ethic. How well you do in school does not necessarily equate with how well you'll do on the ACT. So I think there is some validity to the test, and it does show where you rank nationally amongst other students who are basically at the same level of you. But it's just, again, I think in my opinion, it's just one aspect of a student. It has nothing to do with how well you will perform in life. I don't think it has. I do not think that it gives a really good look into a student's work ethic. I do not think it gives a good look at the whole student. So there are some valid things to look, but I don't even think it should be the top reason why a college or university should accept or deny a student. I think it just gives one aspect of that student.
Okay, fair enough. Can you tell me a little bit about what has been said in regards of race? I know that they have said that there's the raceability with standardized tests and the standards of race and knowledge of taking the standardized tests. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I think it has been proven that when you look at the scores nationally for students that when you look at the nationality or different cultures of students, that certain cultures perform more poorly than other cultures. And again, it used to be said that a reason or a possible reason is because we did not have the same access to all of the same information. So that may be one reason why certain cultures don't perform as well as other cultures, but I don't think that that's necessarily how we process the information and how we understand the questions that are on the test. Are they geared more towards certain races or certain nationalities than others? But I don't think that there has been, I know there are different theories as to why they think some cultures perform poorly than others, but I don't think that there has been any scientific studies done to determine if these theories hold any weight or hold any water.